Capricorn, take a breath with me for a moment. If you've been working hard, carrying responsibility, doing everything right, yet feeling like your money path still isn't matching your effort, this message found you for a reason. There is an insight arriving now, not loud, not dramatic, but powerful enough to permanently change how money flows into your life. This is not about working harder, it's about finally standing in the right position. If you're ready to receive this shift, type "I'm ready" in the comments. Because what begins now isn't just about money. It's about stepping into the version of you who no longer struggles to sustain abundance. Capricorn, let me speak to you quietly now. Not as a reader, not as a voice talking to many, but as someone sitting across from you, noticing the way you pause when money comes up. Because you've felt it for a while, that subtle discomfort you couldn't fully explain. Not panic, not fear, just that steady knowing in your chest that something about the old way stopped fitting. You kept going anyway, because that's who you are. You showed up. You stayed reliable. You carried what others dropped. You did what needed to be done, even when no one was watching. And from the outside, it probably looked like progress. But inside, there was a quiet sentence repeating itself, almost a whisper. I can't keep doing it like this forever. Not because you're tired in a weak way. You're not. You're strong, grounded, capable, but because the path you were walking was built for an older version of you, a version that survived, not the one that's ready to build. And here's the part I want you to really hear. Slowly, the delays you've experienced, the pauses, the moments where things didn't move no matter how much effort you put in. They were not punishments. They were not signs you failed. They were space. Space being created so you wouldn't lock yourself into a future that no longer matches your capacity. You were being held back on purpose, not to stop you, but to keep you from settling too early. Because if everything had worked faster, you might have stayed small without realizing it, and that would have cost you more in the long run than any delay ever could. Think about that for a moment. Just sit with it. What if the slowdown was actually protection? What if the resistance was redirecting you towards something sturdier? Something that doesn't drain you just to sustain itself? You didn't lose time. You were gathering weight, depth, discernment. And now you're standing at a quiet threshold, not announced, not dramatic, just real. The kind where you don't feel rushed anymore. You feel clear. Clear enough to admit that the old way of earning was built on endurance, not alignment. And alignment changes everything. It changes how money meets you, how long it stays, how much pressure it carries with it. You're not here to hustle endlessly. You're here to position yourself where your effort finally matches your return. So if you feel that inner shift happening, that subtle recalibration, that sense that something important is lining up quietly, good, that means you're listening now. And once you listen, the path doesn't shout. It reveals itself, step by steady step, in a way that feels calm, inevitable, and right. Stay with that feeling, because the moment you stop resisting it, things begin to move without you forcing them at all. And Capricorn, once you settle into that stillness, something else begins to surface, not as a command, not as pressure, but as a quiet realization that lands softly, then stays. You start to see it clearly now. Money was never meant to arrive through exhaustion alone. You were taught that effort equals worth, that pushing harder proves loyalty, that carrying more makes you valuable. And for a long time, that belief kept you moving forward. But lately, it hasn't felt empowering anymore. It's felt heavy, like wearing a coat that once protected you, but now restricts your movement. You don't need to do more. Let that sentence breathe for a moment. You don't need to do more. What's changing is not your work ethic, it's your position. Because the truth is, you've been standing in rooms that don't fully see you. You've been offering depth in places that only measure surface results. And slowly, almost invisibly, you allowed yourself to be priced by environments that benefit from your silence. Not because you didn't know your value, but because you were focused on being dependable, not visible. And that choice made sense back then. But now your awareness is shifting. You're beginning to notice how money responds differently when you stop shrinking your role to make others comfortable. You're asking better questions. Who am I actually serving here? Who sets the standard? Who benefits from me staying where I am? These thoughts don't arrive loudly. They arrive in the pauses, in the moment before you agree to something automatically, in the breath you take before accepting less than you know you bring. This is the insight. Money flows toward clarity, toward structure, toward people who know where they stand. And Capricorn, you were built for positioning. You understand systems, you understand leverage, you understand long games. So, when you begin to place yourself correctly, when you choose environments that respect your capacity instead of draining it, the entire relationship with money changes. Not overnight, but unmistakably. You'll feel it first as relief, a subtle loosening in your chest, then as confidence. Not the loud kind, the grounded kind that doesn't need validation. And then, almost without effort, you'll notice that opportunities begin to meet you halfway, because you're no longer chasing them. You're aligned with them. There is a difference. Chasing feels urgent. Alignment feels inevitable. And you are stepping into inevitability now. This is where effort becomes strategic, where your time carries weight, where your presence alone sets a tone. You don't announce this shift, you embody it, and the world responds accordingly. So, stay with this awareness. Let it settle into your decisions, your boundaries, your sense of self. Because once you see your position clearly, you can never unsee it. And from that place, every choice you make quietly redirects the path ahead, guiding you forward with a steadiness that feels both new and deeply familiar. And Capricorn, there's something else you may have noticed recently, a shift in how people look at you, how conversations pause when you speak, how responsibility seems to find its way to your hands even when you never asked for it. This isn't coincidence. Some people are born to follow direction, others are built to set it, and you've always known which one you are. You don't rush decisions, you don't move without structure. When you commit, you carry the outcome with you long after others have stepped away. That weight you've carried for years was never meant to break you. It was shaping your posture. Because leadership, real leadership, doesn't announce itself loudly. It shows up as calm in the middle of complexity. You are the one people turn to when something isn't working, when a system needs to be rebuilt, when answers aren't obvious. And lately, that role is becoming more visible, not forced, not chased, just recognized. You may feel yourself standing a little taller now, speaking with less explanation, choosing your words carefully, then letting them land. This is you stepping into authority without resistance. And here's the part most people never realize. Money responds to authority, not the kind that dominates, but the kind that stabilizes. When you stop minimizing your role to keep the peace, when you stop doing executive-level thinking for entry-level recognition, something changes. Opportunities don't just appear, they align. People trust you with more, not because you demand it, but because you hold responsibility differently. And Capricorn, the moment you stop shrinking your presence to make others comfortable, money begins to move toward you with purpose. Not rushed, not chaotic, but steady. You're not here to hustle for approval. You're here to build something that lasts. And when you allow yourself to fully occupy that role, leader, decision maker, problem solver, the flow adjusts naturally. Your time becomes more valuable. Your boundaries become clearer. Your choices carry weight. This isn't about power over others. It's about authority over your own direction. And that kind of authority is magnetic. You may feel a quiet confidence settling in now. Not excitement, not ego, just certainty. The kind that says, I know where I'm going, and I don't need to explain every step. So let yourself stay here for a moment. Notice how it feels to no longer question whether you belong at the table you've already been holding together. Because from this place, movement happens without strain. Decisions feel cleaner. Paths reveal themselves without force. And as you continue forward, carrying this steadiness with you, what unfolds next doesn't arrive as a demand. It arrives as an opening. Quiet, solid, waiting for you to step fully into it. And Capricorn, this is where you begin to feel it, not as excitement, not as sudden luck, but as movement, quiet movement, like water shifting beneath the surface long before it reaches the shore. Money doesn't rush toward you now. It approaches with intention. No announcements, no applause, no dramatic turning point that others can point to and say that was it. Instead, it shows up in small confirmations, a decision that feels unusually clear, a conversation that lands exactly where it needs to, a choice you make without second-guessing yourself. And suddenly, things begin to align. This is not fast money, it's precise money. The kind that respects structure, the kind that stays once it arrives. You've never been drawn to shortcuts anyway. They've always made you uneasy, because deep down, you know that what comes quickly often leaves the same way. What you're building now has weight to it. It comes from strategy, from sober thinking, from knowing when to move and when to wait. There's a calm intelligence behind your choices lately. You're not reacting, you're responding. And that difference changes everything. Money begins to trust you. It settles where it senses order, where it feels guided, not forced. You may notice that the opportunities arriving now aren't flashy. They don't ask you to gamble. They don't demand urgency. They invite you to consider, to evaluate, to place one solid brick on top of another. This is your rhythm. Slow enough to be deliberate, strong enough to last. And for the first time in a long while, you don't feel like you're chasing stability. You feel like you're creating it. There's relief in that. A sense that you can finally breathe without watching the clock, without bracing for the next disruption. Because what's forming now isn't built on hope alone. It's built on discernment, on lessons learned quietly, on mistakes you never repeated, on moments where you chose restraint over impulse. Those moments mattered more than you realized. They shaped your timing, your judgment, your confidence. And now, the flow reflects that maturity. You don't announce your progress. You don't explain it either. You simply move differently. You choose with clarity. You invest with patience. You protect what you're building without fear. This is the kind of money cycle that doesn't need to prove itself. It speaks through consistency, through the sense of safety you feel when you look ahead and don't immediately tense up, through the quiet, knowing that what you're creating won't collapse the moment you stop pushing. And as this steadiness settles in, something else begins to happen. Your relationship with time softens, with pressure, with expectation. You're no longer rushing towards security. You're living inside it. And from here, every step forward feels measured, intentional, grounded, like the earth beneath your feet finally matching the strength you've carried within you all along. So, stay present with this movement. Let it unfold at its own pace, because what's guiding you now isn't urgency, it's alignment. And alignment has a way of carrying you exactly where you're meant to be without ever asking you to run. And Capricorn, as this steadiness settles in, you may notice something else happening. It does not arrive loudly, it does not announce itself. It shows up as space, more silence around you, more distance where noise used to be, more room to think. At first, that space can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. You might catch yourself wondering why certain people are suddenly less present. Why conversations that once filled your days now feel unnecessary. Nothing went wrong. This is simply what happens when your energy becomes more focused. When money begins to organize itself, your inner world asks for the same order. Some people drift away without conflict. They stop calling. They stop asking. They fade naturally. Others reveal themselves more clearly. You see who avoids responsibility when things require consistency, who becomes uneasy when you stop overgiving, who drains your momentum without ever intending to support your growth. You don't confront them. You don't explain yourself. That's not your style anymore. You understand now that not every ending needs an argument. Sometimes distance is the most respectful response to misalignment. So, you choose quiet. You choose fewer conversations with more meaning. You choose solitude that doesn't feel lonely. In this space, you can finally hear yourself think. You start to notice how much energy used to be spent managing others' expectations, holding space for emotions that were never yours to carry. Letting go of that weight creates room for something stronger. Focus. The kind of focus that allows you to build without interruption, to plan without outside opinions pulling at you, to move forward without constantly checking if everyone approves. This is not isolation, it is protection. Protection of your time, your clarity, your future. And Capricorn, this phase is deeply purposeful, because money does not grow well in crowded emotional spaces. It requires boundaries, consistency, a calm nervous system. When you reduce noise, you increase precision. And precision is your gift. You may find yourself enjoying evenings alone now, not scrolling, not distracting yourself, just sitting with a thought, a plan, a possibility. These moments are not empty, they are fertile. This is where long-term visions take shape, where financial decisions feel cleaner, where you begin to trust your instincts without needing reassurance. And yes, some people will misunderstand this version of you. They might call you distant or different. Let them. You know what this season is for. It is not about cutting people off. It is about choosing where your energy goes. And right now, it is going into building something real, something that does not depend on constant validation, something that will still stand when attention shifts elsewhere. There is a quiet dignity in this phase. You are learning that not everyone is meant to walk every mile with you. Some were there to teach you endurance. Others showed you your limits. And now, only those aligned with your direction will remain close. This understanding doesn't harden you, it softens you. Because you stop taking things personally, you stop forcing connections, you let life rearrange itself naturally, and in that rearrangement, you feel lighter, clearer, more grounded, as if you finally set down a weight you didn't realize you were carrying. So, allow this quiet to stay. Let it wrap around you like a steady night air. Let it support the choices you're making without asking for permission. Because in this calm, with fewer voices pulling at you, your path becomes unmistakable. And you move forward, not rushing, not explaining, just building, solidly, intentionally, exactly as you were meant to. And Capricorn, somewhere in this quiet stretch of time, you begin to notice a deeper change. It's not dramatic, no sudden announcement inside your mind, just a gentle shift in what motivates you when you think about money. You're no longer driven by urgency. No longer waking up with that tight feeling that says you have to keep running just to stay in place. That chapter taught you survival, and you mastered it, but survival was never meant to be your final destination. Now, when you sit with yourself, money feels less like pressure and more like design. You start thinking differently, not, how do I make it through this month, but how do I build something that still works 5 years from now? There's a maturity in that question, a patience that didn't exist before. You're not chasing every opportunity anymore. You're listening for the right ones. You notice how some ideas feel rushed, even if they promise quick returns, and others quietly make sense. They don't excite your nervous system, they calm it. Those are the ones you're drawn to now. Because deep down, you're learning that smart money doesn't require constant effort. It requires structure. You begin to see money as a system, not a reward, a flow that responds to planning, to boundaries, to consistency. And Capricorn, this is where you shine. You've always understood systems. You know how to build frameworks that don't collapse under pressure. So now, instead of pouring all your energy into working harder, you're asking, what supports this? What sustains this? What protects this? You think in layers. Foundations first, then expansion. There is something deeply grounding about the way you approach this phase. You don't need validation. You don't need applause. You need alignment. And once that alignment is in place, money begins to arrive differently, not as a rush, not as a rescue, but as a response to clarity. An idea arrives at exactly the right moment, not because you forced it, but because you were ready to recognize it. A decision presents itself, and instead of hesitating, you know, not emotionally, logically, viscerally. This is the right move. These are the kinds of choices that shape long-term stability. They don't impress everyone, but they protect you. And for the first time in a long while, you trust yourself enough to move without rushing. You understand that building something real takes time, and time, when used wisely, becomes an ally instead of a threat. You're no longer reacting to circumstances. You're designing outcomes. That's a powerful place to stand. There is dignity in this stage, a quiet confidence. You're not trying to prove you deserve more. You already know you do. So, you make decisions that reflect that knowing. You invest thoughtfully. You say no without guilt. You allow things to grow at their natural pace. This is not hesitation, it's discernment. And discernment creates longevity. You might feel proud of yourself in small moments now. Not loudly, just a quiet sense of respect for how far you've come. You've learned that money isn't just earned, it's stewarded. And you're becoming very good at that. So, stay with this rhythm. Let your ideas mature before you act on them. Let your plans breathe. Because what you're building now is meant to last. And as you continue forward, with this steady intelligence guiding you, the road ahead doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels intentional, like each step has a purpose. And each decision is quietly shaping a future that no longer asks you to struggle just to feel secure. You move on, calm, clear, and ready, carrying a wisdom about money that cannot be rushed and no longer needs to be learned the hard way. And Capricorn, this is where you start to notice it, not in your bank account first, but in your body. You wake up one morning and the tension isn't there anymore. That low-level pressure you carried for years, The kind you didn't even question because it felt normal. It softens. Your shoulders drop a little, your breathing slows. You realize you slept through the night without replaying conversations or calculating outcomes in your head. That's how you know the path has changed. Not because you suddenly have less to do. You're still capable, still responsible, still engaged with life. But you're no longer fighting the current. There's a difference between being busy and being misaligned. And you've lived in both. When you were misaligned, everything required effort. Every decision felt heavy. Every step forward came with resistance. Now, the effort is still there, but the friction is gone. You move through your days with a sense of internal agreement. Your mind and your instincts are finally on the same side. That alone changes everything. You trust yourself more. Not in a loud way, in a quiet, grounded way that doesn't need reassurance. You don't second-guess every choice. You don't replay what you said. You don't over-explain who you are. Because something inside you knows you're walking in the right direction. And when direction is right, speed stops mattering so much. You begin to realize that rushing was never the solution. It was the symptom. The symptom of being somewhere you had outgrown. Now that you're aligned, life feels calmer, even as it expands. Money stops feeling like a constant test. It becomes part of the rhythm, something you manage instead of something that manages you. Your emotions follow that same pattern. You're less reactive, less triggered by other people's moods, less pulled into situations that don't deserve your energy. You choose peace more often, not because you're avoiding conflict, but because you no longer need chaos to feel productive. Relationships shift too, not dramatically, not with confrontation. They simply settle into their proper places. Some connections feel easier now, more honest, more supportive. Others drift to the edges without bitterness. You understand that stability doesn't require everyone to stay close. It requires the right people to stay aligned. And Capricorn, this is a rare kind of balance. Financial steadiness, emotional clarity, relational peace. They don't usually arrive together, but when they do, it's because something fundamental has corrected itself. You didn't force this change. You didn't rush it. You earned it by listening, by waiting, by choosing long-term truth over short-term comfort. That's why it feels real. That's why it lasts. There's a sense now that you're no longer bracing for impact. You're not preparing for things to fall apart. You're preparing for growth that doesn't cost your well-being. And that is powerful. You begin to imagine a future that feels spacious, not just successful, but sustainable. You can see yourself enjoying what you build, living inside it, not constantly repairing it. This is what happens when the money path aligns with the soul path. Life stops pulling you in different directions. It starts moving as one. So let yourself notice these changes. Honor them. They are not small. They are signs that you chose the right road even when it required patience. And as you continue forward with this steadiness beneath you, you don't feel the need to rush ahead to see what comes next. You trust that it will meet you at the exact moment you're ready. Because now, for the first time in a long time, you're not just moving forward, you're moving forward at peace. And Capricorn, this is the moment where everything settles into place, not with fireworks, not with a sudden announcement from the universe, but with a deep, steady knowing that feels almost familiar, like remembering something you always carried inside but never had the space to live out fully. You don't arrive here by accident. This awareness does not visit people who are still learning basic lessons. It doesn't stay with those who avoid responsibility or run from their own growth. It comes to you because you've already walked through enough. You've been tested, not once, not briefly. You learned patience when impatience would have been easier. You learned discipline when shortcuts were offered. You learned resilience when quitting would have been justified. All of that mattered. It shaped your nervous system, your instincts, your ability to hold more without losing yourself. That's why this new sense of readiness feels calm instead of overwhelming. You're not hungry for proof anymore. You're grounded in certainty. You know what you can handle now. You know what you won't tolerate. You know the difference between growth and self-sacrifice. And that difference is what allows money to stay. Because abundance does not settle where chaos still lives. It settles where there is structure, where there is integrity, where there is follow-through. You have become that place. This new money path does not rush you. It does not tempt you with urgency. It unfolds quietly, with consistency, with a sense of permanence. You may notice that nothing in your life feels dramatic right now, and that is the sign. Dramatic cycles repeat themselves. Stable ones endure. You are stepping into a level of living that does not require you to constantly prove your worth. Your work speaks, your presence speaks, your decisions speak, and they speak clearly. This is a season of trust, not blind trust, earned trust. The kind that comes from knowing you have done the inner work, from seeing your patterns clearly and choosing differently. You are not asking for permission anymore. You are not waiting to be chosen. You are choosing yourself through every grounded decision you make. And with that choice comes a different quality of abundance. Money that respects your time. Money that aligns with your values. Money that does not disappear the moment you slow down. You are allowed to enjoy this. You are allowed to live at a higher standard without guilt, without apology. Because you did not skip steps, you climbed them. One by one, slowly, deliberately. And now, you move forward with confidence that does not need noise. You don't need to rush. You don't need to compare. You don't need to look back to see if anyone is watching. What is unfolding now is steady, rooted, unshakable. So, take your time. Walk with intention. Build with patience. Trust that this time the foundation is strong enough to hold everything you are becoming. And as you continue on, you don't wonder if the money will leave. You know it won't, because this time, you are ready to keep it. Capricorn, before we part for tonight, let this land gently. Nothing you heard today was meant to rush you. Nothing was meant to impress you. This message came to remind you that the path you're on now is not fragile. It's not temporary. It's built. You didn't stumble into this season. You arrived here because you were ready to hold more without losing yourself. And if something inside you feels calm right now, if your chest feels a little lighter, if your thoughts feel clearer than they did before, that's your confirmation. You're not late. You're not behind. You're exactly where your next level begins. If this message resonated with you, leave a comment below and simply write, "I trust myself." Those words matter more than you think. And if you're walking this journey with us, subscribe so you don't miss what's unfolding next. Because this path doesn't end here. It continues quietly, with more clarity, more strength, and messages that meet you right when you need them. Until then, walk slowly, stand firmly, and remember, you're no longer chasing stability. You're living inside it. The next message is already on its way.